Okay, guys, so this discussion will be in English language, so please make sure you are able to speak. So it's an open discussion, so microphones are working. We have a couple of written questions to start, and I'll probably start with them. What do you think? So, will be there a movement to simplify short lambdas? All the brackets in one place is pain. In other languages, there is something like that.
Oh my God, no.
Like that? Something like that? No comments.
Is there a website I can look at, or where the questions are?
It's Telegram chat.
It's Telegram chat. Oh, but it's in Russian. Okay, yes.
Please stop pulling Perl into C++. That's the answer. That was the short answer. The long answer is most of the time we read code. We do not write code most of the time. So you would like to read code that is nice and understandable, that doesn't look like a cat walked on the keyboard. So stop proposing making shorter lambdas. It's hard to read, and it's not good.
So what about the cases when you can omit autorefref for lambda parameter? It's like autorefref by default. It's not that much, but it's still quite readable.
Can you please use the microphone to ask questions? Because can you please repeat that?
Hey, okay. The follow-up question: Can you please simplify it? Can you probably simplify it a little bit, like using autorefref for lambda parameters by default, so you don't have to write open paren, autorefref p, close paren, and do something that is just open paren, p, close paren. It seems like still quite readable, and just apply autorefref by default, like forwarding reference.
Can I answer? Okay, I would like to say something in general. C++ is community driven. C++ is not, we have no chief architect. That's where we're going to. We have currently 120 people coming together and proposing changes. And the way we handle them is that we don't talk about all the consequences. We think we have a rough idea when we accept these changes, but they might still go into different directions and we have different opinions and we have different use cases and different platforms, etc. So the first thing I want to say is there will be no consistent path C++ is going. We try to at least have some common understanding, but even that is difficult. I give you one example. We try to simplify initialization with uniform initialization. Still, I would say the majority of the people standardizing C++ don't see a need for that. And they don't like it. Which might not be it's hopefully not the assumption or the opinion of the application programmers. One problem we have too many experts in the committee, and not enough application programmers. That's a big, huge problem. So now I come to the important part. It's all your fault. Because you haven't been there. So if you asked, will you do? I come back. If you want to have that, come. I know. We need money, and we have some issues even with visiting, I don't know, from Asia or Eastern Europe to US, etc. There are now some issues. But in general, this is the way it is, that we say this is a community-driven thing, and those who think they have a cool idea should come. At the same time, I would like to say, don't do that, because we are victims of our own success. We have a huge problem in this community, and that is too much proposals. We had in the last meeting, we meet for 1 week, we had 160 papers proposed, which we should discuss.
That's how many pages per paper?
I don't know how many pages. Some of them are small, some big. But anyway, if you take 1 hour for each paper, and certainly a lot of them take more, then we can't handle all these proposals anymore. So yeah, I would say in general we have a big problem in C++, and we try to concentrate a little bit now more again on the big issues, especially for C++ 20, so that we have a significant progress. And then we come to the next question, to the next problem, somebody has to describe that to the community and find out how to use that, which we ourselves might not know. So thanks for this shortcomings and ideas, but it's really a big problem to discuss in these little tiny pieces. I can tell you about what happened in the past, maybe. I can tell you why something was rejected. But that, for example, I couldn't say anything about that because I'm usually sitting in library, working group and library issues, and not in the core issues. So that's the end of the session, huh? No.
Thank you. Can I have one more little question? Is there some rationale behind why it is std null opt instead std none?
Yes. We have none already in the library.
Oh, really? And
yes.
What does it mean?
I think we have it somewhere. Could somebody check the 1,800 pages for me, please?
Yeah, we have Control F.
I don't know the exact reason. That was my assumption, but I have to double check.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. Well, I have a question about reflection. Last winter, I did a presentation on these really events about reflection in C++. And if I do recall correctly, it was excluded from C++ 17. What is the status of the reflection support in C++ 2a?
I can give an answer, but...
Okay, bad chance, yeah?
Yeah.
The reflection proposal really relies on const per containers, like the ability to have const per std string. Const per containers are under heavy development right now. There is Louis and David who do the const-experification of the core parts of the language. I do some small parts of adding const-expr all around the library, like in algorithms, chart rates, complex, and other stuff. There is a lot of work, and there are some complications in implementation. There are complications in implementing placement new in const-expr contexts. Stud vector requires that, for example. You can just make stud vector const-expr without having const-expr placement new. There are problems with simple new in const-expr context because you have to know the type that will be stored in that memory. Otherwise, it's insanely hard to make a compiler that would compile your code in a reasonable amount of time. So the work is going, but there'll be const-expr containers first. After that, there'll be some discussions on how do they fit the reflection the whole reflection stuff. There'll be a lot of discussion about reflection, and I think the reflection won't be in C++20, and probably they won't be in C++23. There will be, I think, they will be made a separate technical specification with reflections so that all the people could try them out, give the committee some feedback, and only after that, only after it is tested in technical specification, after we get some feedback, and after all the issues are addressed, only after that it could be merged into the C++ standard. So it's somewhere around C++ 23, 26.
I have a different opinion. I would be very surprised if reflection is not in C++20. I think that the right people are behind it. Those people who care, so with Richard and David, etc., they have the drive and the momentum behind it. They have example implementations. I think it's close. It's something like 50% probability, but I personally would currently be surprised if it's not in C++20.
There are some, as far as I know, there are 2 different proposals on how to implement reflection,
yeah,
like that template or function-like calls, and there's no agreement at this point, as far as I see.
So we have the same problem like with coroutines. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's see. Come and help us.
Okay, thank you. That sounds like in between next year and never. Okay, well, I see other people behind the microphones. Okay, the next question. What's your favorite feature of upcoming standard?
Of the upcoming standards?
Upcoming, yeah.
Well, first of all, I have to think about what is coming.
I'm not sure it will be in, but there is a draft paper, I think, about generalized value parameters to templates. It's a non-class value or whatever.
What?
It's I think it's in language evolution.
Yeah, language. Oh my goodness.
That is a possibility to give non-integer pointer, etc., const expr values as template parameters. If that comes in, it would be my favorite, apart from concepts.
Well, I like library, and my favorite part's gonna be networking, if it fit into C++20.
That will not make it.
Nah.
Because it depends on coroutines, and we will not be able to finish coroutines for C++20.
I still hope.
No. No way.
Okay, then ranges.
Yeah, ranges. I think ranges. I think I have no idea what is my favorite because I didn't look carefully enough into the new features. I have enough to do with looking at the existing features. But from what I see and hear, and I think ranges will be the big thing. That will change, but that will change the whole way we program in C++. So all the textbooks have to be rewritten. Yeah, it will be worse. We had a raise of hands at the last meeting 3 weeks ago, where we as a group of 100 people were asked for the opinion, will C++20 be bigger than C++11? And the majority said yes. It will be a bigger change. Reflection, ranges, concepts. There is this nice little library that does a calendar, which will help us a lot. Don't ask questions about speculation. They will.
But then after there's big changes, how much time will it take for the community to find out how to tell the features, to work with the features, to get them into the guidelines? How many time will it take for the community to recover from the shock? I have the impression that the time gets longer with each new change, and you haven't even fully digested the previous ones. Maybe 11, but not 14 or 17.
Let me ask you a question. How many people here in the room know that since C++ 11, it's better to initialize your members with the constructor taking the arguments by value instead of by reference? Okay. We talk about move semantics introduced 6 years ago. And we talk about one of the 2 or 3 consequences that each and every application programmer should know. But even this knowledge is just very rare. It's not written in some books. So yeah, we have a big problem.
It's not a language problem.
No, it's a
it's
problem.
It's education.
Yeah, it's education, yeah. Scott Myers has retired. Herb does not write books anymore. So I'm currently doing all I can, but that's not enough.
Thank you.
Hello. If I understand correctly, you say that Standard Committee has really big problems. How it works now? And my question is, do you have any plan how to change the way Standard Committee works to solve these problems? Or you will continue work the same way as now? Because I think if things will not change, the quality of the language can suffer in the future.
I have an opinion. We should ask an interesting question. And the question is, should we stop evolving C++? So that we say, enough is enough. No revolution anymore, no big things. That's it. Probably that won't happen. And now we have to, let me say it that way, we currently learn that we have to concentrate on the most important things. That's something we learned the hard way. A lot of people were very upset about features that didn't make it into C++ 17, including Janis Strussel himself. And I think we are doing better now. So we learned a little bit from this failure. I don't think it's a failure. Yeah, but we have to concentrate, but that needs time. Maybe it's a self-regulating system. So if we start to doing worse and worse and worse, more people will hate C++, and then we don't get any more papers and proposals.
Thank you very much.
What about algebraic data types and pattern matching? Is any hope that C++ will support these features like in Rust or Haskell or Camel? Is there anyone discussion in committee?
Did you get the question?
Didn't get the question. Maybe can someone repeat the question clearly?
Algebraic data types and pattern matching, right?
Yes.
What data types?
Algebra.
Algebraic data types, okay. Now I got it. Sorry. We both don't speak English, so we should use another language. Yeah, maybe right. I can't say anything about that. So with algebraische Typen?
It's types like enum in Rust or data types in Haskell.
I can tell you something. C++ is not going in the direction of other languages. It's staying its own language. It will not go into the direction of Java. It will not go into the direction of Just. It adopts some useful things from other languages. But the concentration of C++ is still to say there will be nothing better between this language and assembler code. And this might or might not answer your question, but and for everything else, somebody has to propose it. That's all. If nobody proposes it, that's it.
In general, the answer to any question, will this be in C++, is yes, when you put enough effort behind it. There is no central dictator who decides. It's people who write papers, come to the meetings, present them, get frustrated, present them again, and etc.
Антон,
So you could do it.
можешь перевести на английский? Собственно, вопрос состоял в том, ведутся ли обсуждения сейчас в комитете этого вопроса. И если они не ведутся, тогда понятно. А если ведутся, то вокруг чего?
So the question is if this is under discussion in the committee or not.
I don't think so. I never heard that.
I know a guy who was planning to propose a pattern matching, but I do not know about the progress of his efforts.
I can tell you now my favorite feature that is coming. UTF-8 support.
Yeah.
We have. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. We at the last meeting we adopted UTF-8 support. And we discussed whether we want to have it experimental, but now we suddenly have two guys caring for them. We didn't have them for many years, and we have so big problems with UTF-8 and portability with different character encodings. So there will come a char8t type and a U8 string, and they will guarantee that the underlying values in these data types are UTF-8, so that we finally can communicate with all the other software and platforms we have in the world. That might be the biggest feature we have in C++20.
So let's take a question from Telegram chat. So the question is, what's the current status of networking TS? How likely the final API will be similar to current Azure, Boost Azure?
It will be, or it is already a TS now, so a draft standard. The problem is coroutines. Coroutines is hindering standardization of a few other things. And one is the networking TS. We don't expect that this will come in C++20. Have you been at the last day in the last meeting?
No, I have no visa.
You were the guy with no visa, yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. So Herb Sutter was there at the end, having exactly discussed that. And the problem is coroutines. Coroutines will not be there in C++20, we assume. And therefore, and it will block Boost Azure, or will block networking, therefore. That's the current assumption.
Thank you.
Another question, a bit higher level one. Do you personally think that some sort of dictatorship in a committee would actually speed up things a bit?
A bit of what would speed up?
Dictatorship, since we touched the topic of dictators.
Petrolship?
Dictatorship. Yeah. Like the one we have in Linux, in Python, and well...
So, there's a problem with dictators. The problem is, you have to find the good ones. And those who are the good ones tend, over time, with all their power, to become bad ones. I assume and fear that this is also true for programming standardization.
Anton? So back to lambdas. There is a piece of code, actually two pieces, And there is a question, which one is more simple? And the statement that collection handling will never be cute and simple with ugly lambdas. Alexei, you should come to the microphone. Don't hide yourself.
So if it's simple and it takes 10 minutes to understand the example, I have a question.
So it's fairly difficult to
we can say
to
something.
answer the questions that contain code.
We can say something in general about lambdas. Lambdas are a success story. They are. And you know what we did with lambdas? We made templates a success story. Because generic lambdas are function templates. So there's an interesting effect now in the community saying, the moment we say something behaves like a template, and the programmer sees that, we have a problem. The moment they don't see all the nightmare and just can use auto, then it's great. So I don't know in which direction this goes, but maybe the more interesting direction is to, in general, allow that functions take auto as a parameter. What is this? Oh, okay, yeah. I don't see
Pretty
this.
self-explanatory.
I don't see this on the horizon.
Okay. So is there a probability to introduction of lifetimes in C++ to solve the problems that references create?
The one I just described in my talk, probably, or what? No, maybe this was a question, not having heard my talk.
What kind of lifetimes do the question
What kind
mean?
of lifetimes?
Sorry, I don't know.
For those who haven't been in the talk, we at least currently proposed a feature that in the signature you can say that a created object or returned value depends on the lifetime of a given parameter or of the object of star this. And that will help us in a lot of situations so that at least compiler can detect problems or even handle them better. But when we discussed how to handle them better, we already run into a couple of interesting problems. Can somebody turn on the volume a little bit so that it doesn't beep all the time? There's a feedback loop here somewhere. Yes, reference is a big problem. We have a lot of big problems in C++. Always remember, we have to be backward compatible, and that's usually a nightmare. You should one day sit in the core library working group if they discuss a very simple proposal and then compare it against very esoteric cases of the way people use or program.
Speaking of ranges, are we really going to see std2?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
std2 is dead.
Again?
std2 is dead. It will never work.
Oh, thanks God. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I will explain some things about that. We came close to this key question. 3 weeks ago in Albuquerque, the rangeless TS came with as a first proposal taking std2. Which means that all the algorithms you have there that now get a new signature are in std2. And then I asked, the question that I asked was, so if then a vector has a constructor taking an std2 type. Should therefore the vector also become std2? So that we have a chain reaction in the way that if you just create a new version for one thing, each and every component that uses this thing also has to adapt to this new version. And we create something which I know from service-oriented architecture, which is also something I know about, when we talk about versioning about distributed systems. So in a way that you say, let's talk about some data types here and there and there, and somebody has a cool new idea which is not backward compatible, so let's create a new version. The question that immediately arises is, who else and where else do we need this new version? And what we learn from that is that the moment you have to version the whole world, you are in big trouble. Alone the discussion which should be in std2 and what should not be in std2 will take forever. So we take now a different approach, and I think this is the right approach. The right approach is that each component can decide to introduce a new version by introducing a new namespace. And we will the ranges proposal is now changed for C++ 17 from proposing to use std2 to propose that we use a specific namespace, and we assume that we will establish a common short namespace, like FS is a common abbreviation for the file system namespace. We will probably get something like RG as a shortcut for the ranges namespace, so that this is usually used by the programmers. What I mean is, I think this was the last chance. We had the opportunity to introduce std2. We failed because we saw a lot of problems with this proposal. There is nothing bigger coming, and therefore std2 is dead.
That's really great news. Thank you.
So do you guys think that row pointers will be removed in the future from C++? Row pointers.
Yeah, and arrays we will also remove, and functions we will also remove. We will only have lambdas left. There's something like backward compatibility. There is an interesting proof in this community that says, well, we have an experience which is a very bad example, because sometimes we discuss, can we break backward compatibility? And what is the answer? Python. Python. Think about what Python did when they switched to 3 dot something, or 2.3. They were not backward compatible, and now we have 2 Pythons in the community, and the majority still is using Python 2. And so this will never happen. We will never remove something that is key and used in the language. That's a new language. For a new language, invent your own language.
You will never remove something, but recently we switched from teaching C as a first language to teaching C++ as a first language, and we totally don't discuss pointers or row arrays. That's simply
I agree
not
with
in.
that.
But
Yeah.
that's something different. That's not
Yeah.
the language.
Yeah.
That's how you use, teach, and document your things.
Yes.
And when that gets common, maybe we'll get a GCC option, warn at row arrays or something like that. I would like that. But it's not a language option. And I would tell my students, you must use it. Your programs must compile with that option. Otherwise, I won't accept them.
But that's not possible, because all the data types internally need raw arrays and pointers.
You can switch that off in libraries, etc. And it must be it's possible. But that's another approach. That's not the language itself, it's how we use the language.
Yeah. Don't tell the programmers that there are raw pointers.
No, we don't tell them.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
I agree with you. No,
later on we will tell there are pointers. Those are dangerous references. Reverse history. But there's a lot of old luggage in C++ that we must get rid of, not by asking the language to remove it, but by not using them anymore.
So what should we use instead of raw pointers?
For the most part, std vector, std array, and things like that.
Not arrays, pointers.
References?
Smart pointers?
No, references.
Well, we have two smart pointers. The first smart pointer is unique pointer, which is a problem if you need pointers because you have shared ownership, so you need objects at different locations. If you need polymorphism, so if you have a vector of pointers just to have inhomogeneous collections, now with C++17 we can use variants that will help as long as we have a limited list of possible types. But the problem is we don't have a very good solution for shared ownership where we don't pay a price. So the problem is shared pointers are expensive because we have to deal with the multi-threading problem, and that means whenever a shared pointer gets copied, we have a synchronous call of incrementing the number of owners, and that in some situations becomes a problem. I agree with you. I just did training in a big automobile company where we also said we want to teach modern C++ to beginners, and we teach shared pointer and unique pointer. But we also have to say that there are some limits, and sometimes you need the raw pointers. I see no full replacement of raw pointers.
Not full replacement, but what you teach first gets stuck in the brain. So in your situation, I would even omit the unique pointer. Just teach them shared pointer and deal with the performance later. Get it correct first and understandable. And in the surprising lot of cases, performance is not a problem.
I agree.
Will we have modules in C++20? And if we have, doesn't it mean that we can throw away some build optimization techniques like precompiled headers, Unity builds, and something like that? And actually, is build time a concern for committee at all?
I would say 50-50. Modules is a problem. Is this videotaped?
It is.
Okay, let me say it that way. One problem the reason we don't have a common, good working model of initializing objects in C++ and have instead a mess, a total mess, is because we have very different opinions where we want to go to with initialization. So some say uniform initialization, everything with braces, and the other half says, no, that's exactly the wrong approach. There are differences, so demonstrate the differences in the code. Don't use a common uniform initialization syntax. I see the same split of opinions in the topic of modules. So we have very different opinions, and I would say, although this is sometimes not speaking out loudly, there are people who like modules and there are people who hate modules, at least the way they are currently proposed for the C++ standard. And now they are playing interesting games, and maybe we get some compromise, and maybe a compromise is worse than having all or nothing. So it all depends on whether we can come up with something in the middle and whether we can all live with that. It's very close. This is a very, very emotional, political, and topic with very different opinions. So let's see.
Okay. That's kind of interesting to listen to discussions, right, with different opinions about what to teach and about if you're concerned about performance or not. So, but these discussions really make me concerned about the future of C++. As a game developer, I'm really concerned about the performance. And sometimes I'm not going to pay even a very small performance fee, because in games this might be like added and multiplied, you know? And so my question is about networking, TS. So you've mentioned that it will be finalized when coroutines will be implemented, right? So the question is if there will be alternative interface to use a networking layer without coroutines.
That's a first half of a sentence.
So networking without coroutines, if it is part of TS or not.
Did we discuss that? I think we even discussed that. But I don't know the outcome. I don't have it on top of my head. I think this was discussed. Can we do it without coroutines and add the part with coroutines later?
Well, because you know the trick is the coroutines are not free, right? And if you want
yeah,
to
but
process
they are key.
connections,
To
right?
some extent, they are key.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
I can say something about that. I know that this is that at least was proposed. I don't know how deep it was discussed.
Okay, thank you.
As far as I know, to use the coroutines with networking TS or not depends on the completion token that you pass to the asynchronous operation. If you do not pass completion token, that means do that in coroutine, then you won't use those. You get the boost ASIO as it is without coroutines and spawn function. So the answer is yes, coroutines and networking they must cooperate, but coroutines are not mandatory for the networking TS. And I'm guessing that a few people who are really into networking TS, at least half of them are not really enjoy coroutines in the current state. So they'll keep an eye on that thing and they will take care that the networking is usable without coroutines.
So the question is, what about a custom allocator for unique pointer? Because now we need to write a lot of code for this.
A custom allocator for unique pointer?
Yes.
Why? It does not allocate. Why do I need an allocator for unique pointer?
Maybe shared pointer.
No, unique pointer? Maybe.
But unique pointer is not allocating any memory at all. I'm confused by this question.
So the next one is it possible to implement a weak pointer for unique pointer?
Is it possible to
implement a weak pointer for unique pointer? Yeah.
To unique, yeah. I think that should work. Because you. No. The problem is the following. Shared pointers are expensive because you need some place where you count the owners and you need a place where you count the weak pointers. You be both counters because the moment the last owner is gone, you delete the underlying resource, and the moment your last weak pointer, so your last observer is gone, you can delete the control block that counts. So you don't no longer lead the counter. So if we have a weak pointer for unique pointers, we would need a place where we count the weak pointers. And then we need allocate memory. So, and that's a problem. And the good thing with unique pointer, it's zero overhead. to a raw pointer. And therefore, I think we have a principal problem with this idea. So we get into the trouble and the problems shared pointer has regarding performance and multi-threading support, etc. I might be wrong, but I think that's the answer. Otherwise, I would assume that we would have weak pointers for unique pointers already.
How to lock a weak pointer that points to unique pointer?
Well, that's something you need, definitely. That I know that, because sometimes you have you have a unique pointer owning a resource, and sometimes you want to just observe whether it's still there, this resource. So it's an observer. But the problem is somebody has to store some information somewhere. And that's independent from the lifetime of the weak pointer or the unique pointer, and that's a problem. It's not a language-supported feature, it's a library-supported feature. That's some drawbacks of shared pointer and unique pointer.
Thank you all for the great discussion, and I have, as far as I understand, it's come to the logical end, yeah? So the last question, in the spirit of the name, which is actually roasting of the committee. So I'm the organizer actually of conferences and a lot of meetups in C++. And for past few years, the subjects really changed from, hey guys, look what we can do with this new standard. This is so awesome. And recent subject of talks is more like, hey guys, please don't do that. You will hurt yourself. So, guys, please, no, please do a lot more things, because we need new subjects and new topics. We're out of themes on the conferences. So I'm really, really excited to see a new standard and new topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks everyone for coming. It was a great event, I hope. So for those who are coming tomorrow for master classes, please don't forget to take your laptops with you. All right? Всем спасибо, что пришли. Будьте с нами. Присоединяйтесь к чатам, присоединяйтесь к общению. Ждите следующих конференций. Ура!